Welcome back to another Women Empowerment Wednesday. Today we have the beautiful Shae out of Washington. So we're going over to the West Coast. Shae is a mom and she is also a coach for trauma informed HR. So, Shae, if you want to come up, just introduce yourself and what does it mean to be trauma informed HR?
Yeah, so I worked in HR for about 15 years. And early on, I worked in a trauma informed care environment where I really just saw the need for a lot of what our clinicians were practicing applied
Okay.
to HR. Just, 101 understanding of how trauma impacts individuals, not in a diagnosing way, but in a way of saying, how can we eliminate potential triggers in our HR processes? So that might be something like not catching people by surprise in terminations, giving them
Yeah.
coaching leading up to it, or making sure that we're following up when people apply to jobs, not just ghosting them because we filled a role. Some of those things
Yeah.
just are really about respect and being humane, I guess, or allowing people to have dignity through the
Okay.
processes. People want to work at the company. They love working at the company. They want to stay at the company so that the
Mhm.
founders or CEOs, executive team don't have to continue restarting because they've, now just made their entire workforce upset. It's like, how can we make it enjoyable to work? People can come home and actually have some
Mhm.
things left for their family and their community afterwards.
And I love everything you said. And I feel like I have a special place for you in my heart because I did HR or I've done HR for 10 years. So I completely understand everything that you're explaining. And it's the simple systems and things that we put in place that kind of set the tone for the rest of the facility. So I commend you on everything you're doing. The first step to changing anything is awareness. So I'm happy that you're in a position where you can bring awareness to these companies who maybe don't have boots on the ground or can't see it because they're in it. I think that's so important. So, what really led you to this space? Was there like a personal or professional moment that shifted you?
Yeah, so I had been working in a trauma informed environment, as I mentioned, and the leadership team had turned over. And as they were kind of packing their desks, one of them
Mhm.
said to me, this place has a way of kind of destroying the things you love. And so she warned me to like protect my marriage. And she told me a little bit about some of the ways that the work was impacting people in their personal lives. And
Okay.
at the time, I was young and I was like, oh, I'm fine. I don't have that in my history. But I
Yeah.
had something else in my history that ended up being triggered in that environment. And in learning and picking up those pieces, and also just seeing the ways that everyone else might choose to overwork or underwork,
Yeah.
um, different ways those things play out. That's kind of where it came to be that, I want to speak about my personal experience, but I also want to speak about professionally how we can do better for people.
Right.
And a lot of it starts with self awareness, self regulation. What environments are going to be good for you as an individual to work in, and what environments might be too triggering or too stressful to where you won't be able to have the boundaries to care for yourself, and maybe you could pick a
Mhm.
different career field. Those are the types of things that I like people to start thinking about, is like, if you're unhappy in your job,
Mhm.
what's contributing to that, and is that something you can change, or is that something that's going to be inherent in the work that you're doing? So that's kind of how I landed here, was just kind of through personal experience, and also just
Mhm.
seeing how we can help others in building better systems.
And isn't that crazy? Like my mouth probably would have dropped if somebody would have said that to me. And it's so sad because like that is the environment that that job has created for those individuals for them to feel so comfortably speaking on it because it's a lived experience. And unfortunately I feel like that's a lot of case for a lot of different people, like you said, and any type of, I mean, it's across the board. Any job that you have, you can find yourself not happy if you're not having those boundaries, if the work life balance isn't there, if it's a toxic work environment, like you said, trauma informed. And again, like Shae just mentioned, self awareness is key. Like sometimes we take the things that are going on personally within ourselves and we take that to work and then it festers. So when we recognize that we may be having an off day or something like that, or even when we recognize what our triggers are, I think that's so, so important in order to have that healthy work environment to be able to talk about those experiences. So Shae, I know that you're not originally from Washington, but how do you feel like that has like changed everything that you look at as far as HR and trauma informed?
Yeah, so growing up, I lived in Japan and I
Oh,
lived on
nice.
a military base. And so I think it was like from first grade to about sixth grade. And so that really
Mhm,
formed my identity from a young age of just understanding more about the world and the way that that inclusion works. Everybody was really helpful when somebody new would move in. We were used to people moving in, and we were just kind of generally inclusive. I had teachers that were Japanese or Black or different, from different parts of the world. And so it was
yeah,
really, um, I got to travel to Thailand and see some of the most impoverished areas in the world. And that had an impact on me from a really young age. And so when I moved to Washington, and it's a pretty homogenous group, at least where I moved when I was about 12. So
mhm,
I think that really formed my perspective, especially once I got into the workforce of like everyone belongs here. Um, Seeing the ways that policies keep us from having opportunities for everybody. I think
mhm,
that really flavored it my perspective from a young age, and then as
okay,
a young professional. But then, especially seeing the ways that women either self limit ourselves or we are told we're not qualified and we believe it.
mhm,
And then I also came from recruiting too, where I'm seeing like, hey, this person has amazing skills
mhm,
once I talk to them, but maybe on paper they don't quite have it. And it's all about presentation or that marketing tool, which is a resume.
yep,
So it's like, how do we have more confidence? How do we present ourselves differently? And so I think a lot of my passion for empowering women comes from just those life experiences. And just like living in the Pacific Northwest. And I mean, I live by Portland, Oregon. We're very inclusive. We say keep Portland weird and keep Vancouver normal. So I'm kind of
right.
like right in the mix of like normal and weird.
Mhm,
But I'm always looking at the why. Like, why are things
yeah,
this way, or why do we want them differently? And really, like the power of the individual is one thing, but collectively, there's so much more power for us to make change. And so
yeah.
a lot of that's kind of embedded in my work.
And like you said a lot of great things, but I feel like when we have these type of discussions, we always have to consider the source. And you are someone who, again, you've experienced worldwide, globally, how people are treated, what different conditions are people, are, and you've been able to observe and then bring all that back, like you said, to the US and be able to help and see the blind spots that, again, these corporate or these management teams may not see because they don't have boots on the ground. But here you are, again, having all the experience and knowledge that you have, and you can bring it to the forefront. So that's huge. And again, thank you for empowering women, because we love our women, because we're phenomenal people. And it's just like, again, when you're in the position as a recruiter or in the position as the hiring manager, like you can make or break someone's livelihood, really. And again, you take the time, you see what they have on paper, but having this back and forth conversation could be something completely different. They may not know how to present it on paper, but they can present themselves. So again, I feel like HR and recruiting is such a critical role, that's beyond the skills that we learn. It's people, the relationship building. So thank you for all that information. So when you say workplaces can be traumatizing, what are some examples that people may not even recognize?
Well, I think the most obvious answer is like if you're working in an emergency room, right?
Hmm.
You're there to make sure somebody has a pulse, to make sure that their injuries are treated. It can be very tactical, like if we just break it down like that.
Right.
But then in reality, you put yourself in those shoes, it's like you're seeing death, you're seeing almost death, you're saving people, bringing them back to life. There's things that are not, um, we're not really prepared for as humans.
Right.
And people kind of develop a tough skin or bring in a tough skin. But I found on an organizational level that those are often pockets of an organization that are already very high tension, high stress.
Hmm.
And now you have humans in there working. We're not robots. We have these nervous systems. We have these
Yep.
personal life experiences that can um, become, heightened in those environments. And so I think that's the, simple example of how those dynamics can play out is it truly is life or death. And those people
Okay.
might experience things that are tragedies. And if we don't stop to care for the people, they just keep pushing to the next crisis and then they get burned out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they come home and maybe it's, they have different ways of coping with that. And so
Exactly.
you take that into any other workplace and now it's a little bit more under the surface, right? It might be, you're working in an office, but some people are overworking and some people are underworking. And,
Mhm.
you get into cliques. Like there's all sorts of ways that um, those traumas. And I mean, if you look at the statistics for the amount of like sexual harassment in the workplace, or you look at the amount of domestic violence in the population in
Mhm.
general, you look at the number of people that are caregivers at home and like maybe they're caring for their parents and they're caring for their children at the same time. These are
Right.
all areas where people have potential to just be under a lot of stress and burnout, either not treat each other well or not treat themselves well. And so it's kind of like I tend to avoid like that exact phrase that workplaces can be triggering and more focus on like, okay, which specific thing are we looking at and which specific concern do we want to address? Because they're going to have
Okay.
different, um, different solutions. Like in the emergency room, it's like, let's take a break. Let's make sure they have time off the floor to debrief if
Mhm.
there's something really traumatic. If it's an office environment, let's make sure that people have the resources they need, career
Right.
development or time away from work or those additional leaves, and managers who understand when they need a leave. Those are the
Right.
things that we can start to look at once we kind of identify what it is that could be potentially triggering in the workplace.
Okay. And like you said a lot of great things. So if you all missed that, go ahead and rewind what Shay just said, because even it applies across the board, no matter what type of industry that you're working in. So what do you feel like, in your opinion, does a healthy workplace actually look and feel like?
So I think about like the best places to work. Um, for example, if you're doing a major change, that there's communication about it, and maybe there are times that it's confidential, but you can share what you can share.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can share, hey, there are confidential changes happening. We can't share what it is, but just know
Right.
that we're looking out, here's the future that we're looking for. Um, so communication's huge. Making sure that people have a route to send complaints. Um,
Hmm.
and it really is more feedback sometimes. Some of the most simple ways to do that is like a survey or just even a box where people can leave comments and they know who opens and reads those comments.
Yeah.
Um, but just putting those things in place that are really simple for people to know where to go with the specific problem they might be experiencing. So those are some of the things that come to mind.
Okay. And then how do you feel like leaders can start becoming more trauma informed without them overcomplicating it?
Yeah. So there's 5 principles of trauma-informed leadership. It's safety, choice, collaboration, empowerment, and trust.
Okay.
So starting with those 5 and just looking at your own work and how do you apply those. I was listening to a presentation with Katie Kurtz last week, and she had said
Okay.
trauma informed everything. It's not just trauma informed HR. It's not just trauma informed care environments. It's everyone can be trauma informed. And it really starts with just educating yourself on what even is trauma, because
Yeah.
that's half of the informed part. And then applying those 5 principles to your own work.
Okay. Perfect. And what are those 5 principles again? Just so the audience can hear it.
Safety, trustworthiness, choice, collaboration, and empowerment.
Okay. Perfect. 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 And then Shay, so I know when we spoke previously, we talked about working fractionally. I know that was something new to me, at least the term. Can you explain what that is and why it works for you?
Yeah, so fractional work is where oftentimes companies don't need a full-time person for whatever it is as they're scaling. They might only need a quarter of a full-time person. And so
Mhm.
instead of hiring a full-time HR person that's going to be like 200,000 a year, they can pay for the smaller portion. Maybe it's even a portion of a generalist, right?
Okay.
But they're making sure they're getting that work built into their systems early So instead of working for one company, I might have 4 or 5 that I'm supporting on a part-time basis. So that's really what the
Okay.
fractional is about.
Okay, and I love that because it provides like flexibility, and that's another reason why I love HR because like we have so many different avenues that we can work at.
Mhm.
So, how do you feel like this fractional work has changed your lifestyle, especially as a mommy?
Yeah, it's made it amazing because, one, I'm able to just schedule the time that I want and I'm able to choose the companies that I work for. So I can work around my kids' schedules. I don't know about you, but my kids have like early release Wednesdays every once in a while, and it feels like it's all the time. So I'm able to build in, Wednesday afternoons is the time that I'm here when they're getting off, they need a
Yeah,
lunch or whatever. So I'm still working a full day, but I'm maybe just building in a little bit of a different time. It's also allowed me to walk away when a company just really isn't interested in doing the right thing. And
okay.
so that's really empowering too, because too often we get caught up in businesses where we're now reliant on them, and we don't really have that autonomy to back away when something's not fitting.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of really good benefits. Even sometimes, I've gotten laid off, and having those additional streams of revenue have been really powerful.
No, and I definitely feel that, especially again, because I'm a mom, so we both have teenagers. So I definitely understand like the flexibility is important. And that's why I love being an entrepreneur. Um, so Shae, for the moms who may be watching this, or for the women who may be watching this, who want to know how to get into like fractional positions, is it anything different than just applying for a job, or is there specific places that people can look for fractional HR roles?
Yeah. So if you're looking for HR roles in particular, there's fractional people, which is a good one.
Okay.
I personally have used Sam Eaton's Mindability group and her business. She has like a business coaching group as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of ways to get into it, but I say, like, first of all, figure out what it is you like doing in your work.
Yeah.
And then just like create a web page, put it out on your, start marketing yourself. You don't even have to have your face necessarily, but pick a name, put it out there, and make it clear what you do.
Hmm.
Because, maybe it's just recruitment you want to do. Well, put it out there, say I do recruitment, and just start, networking with your people, and letting them know this is what, if you need this, this is who I am, this is what I do. So you
Okay.
don't necessarily have to, I think if I look back, I'm like, oh, I needed 15 years experience before I could do this. It's like, no, I actually could have, and I did kind of do this as a side hustle, but I
Yeah.
never really believed in myself enough to do it full time. And so that's
Okay.
the other thing. Believe in yourself. Get started.
Yes, like Shay said, believe in yourself and get started. Do it scared. There's no perfect way, but you just have to start and do it for sure. Okay, so what are some of like the pros and the cons or challenges of people working fractionally that they don't talk about?
Yeah. So definitely I run into people who are just like not they don't really feel like they're great networkers, or they don't really want to put themselves out that way, and it's
Hmm.
totally respectable. Like, yeah, not everybody wants to be like a salesperson.
Yeah,
I think also you do have to roll with the changes. Like, there, as I mentioned, there's times I've been laid off. There's times when like contracts have changed.
mhm,
And that's where, you do run that risk anyway if you're working for an employer. Um,
right.
there's a few other things like benefits, or, unemployment benefits, or if you get sick, those types of things are really important to think about.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of those things you run into anyway if you're working in a full-time job. So I think it also can be kind of lonely because you're like the only person out there doing the thing that you're doing. But
Hmm.
finding a community of entrepreneurs, there's a ton of them on like Facebook. Just finding a few communities that you want to be a part of and diving deep,
Right.
um, because you'll find other women, like yourself, who are supportive and who understand what you're going through and maybe have faced a challenge similar to what you're going through.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So thank you for that. And then how would you say like motherhood has reshaped your relationship with work?
Oh man, it is really, really like I think about as my kids are getting into almost seniors now, like,
Hmm.
wow, like the person I was when I started and to now is so different. In the beginning, I just didn't really have the confidence, and I would just kind of, was like a people pleaser and like a
Yeah.
yes person. And um, becoming a mother really changed just like my own confidence. Keeping two humans alive has a way of doing that.
Yes.
It also changed what I'm willing, to sacrifice. And then I think it just honestly made me so much more effective and efficient. And that's
Mhm.
one thing that I don't think is talked about enough is just how efficient moms are. If you want something done,
Every day.
hire a mom, right?
Like it's never ending. So effective and efficient is absolutely the top two words. And that kind of goes into my next question is what are some real unfiltered challenges of balancing motherhood and career?
Yeah.
I feel like
So
this list is never is forever going because I feel like we face different challenges every day, but go ahead and give your
yeah,
opinion.
I mean, I think what's really hard as a working woman is it can be really hard to find the right partner at home. And,
Mhm.
I personally just published an article about, just thoughts as I divorced for the second time. And that might be an interesting read for anybody that's also going through that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so it's like figuring out those supports that I need to be able to maintain a working woman and a, breadwinner, a head of household. So some of the things my partner was doing, I've just had to hire out. Like I
Yeah.
have a cleaning service. I have, a concierge to help at that, doing errands and things like that. And I have somebody who um, is like my EA for my business. So
Mhm.
those key people, yes, it's expensive and it does bring my take home down, but I would not be healthy. I would not be here dressed and ready for this meeting if it weren't for the supports that I have brought on. And you can do that again, thinking fractionally. You can tell your cleaning service, like, hey, I can only afford once a month, or
Mhm.
um, I can only use help in this area, but just getting something started because as you grow and as you become more successful, it becomes harder and harder to do it all. And as women, we can't do it all. And we're really asked to do it all in this modern world.
Mhm.
So figuring out those things that you really need help with, it might be daycare, it may be transportation for your kids, but
Yes.
what are those priorities and what's going to keep you healthy and actually get those things done because you can't let them fall apart. And so that's been like my biggest challenge is like just getting systems that support me and that last.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And you touched on like a big key that even like the millionaires, the billionaires, they do this. And like I just got done reading the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. I don't know. Have you read it before?
Yes.
I that is absolutely like out of all the books that I've read, like that has to be like in my top five. And in the book, he talks about like the importance of delegating. And like you said, in the modern world today, women are supposed to do everything. We're supposed to be superheroes and we're supposed to do it with a smile, never cry, never break down, just keep going. But we have to delegate things, especially if they're things that we don't want to do, even within our business. If it's things that we're not the master at, like maybe it could be content or marketing, then hire out. So then you can focus on the things that really are important to you. And like you said, when you hire a cleaning service, because I have a cleaning service come every other month, or when you do little things like that, that helps your mental health because it's like, okay, it's going to get taken care of. Like you said, it may hit the bottom line, but at the end of the day, you can still function and do the things that you love to do. So that was extremely important. I'm happy that you brought that up because I feel like sometimes we feel guilty about asking for help or guilty about hiring out because again the world says that we should be able to do everything, but that's not realistic. So thank you
Mhm.
for breaking barriers and thank you for putting that out there for other women who may be going through the same thing. So do not feel guilty if you have to hire a cleaning service. Like I promise you, you will live to see another day and your house will be so much cleaner and you will feel a sense of relief after that you did not have to be the one to clean it. Um, so, all right. So, have you ever dealt with guilt either from work or from parenting? And then how did you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely deal with guilt all the time. So I grew up in a very kind of like patriarchal society where like moms stay at home. And
Okay.
so like every little need your kid has is on your shoulders. And even still, like it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, I'm going to spend so much time with my kids now. And then it's like I'm home and I'm like, they're not home. They're off with their friends and whatnot. But yeah, there's mom guilt all the time. And I think that really have to look at like, okay, well, what's tangible from this?
Hmm.
Like, and I think talking to other women is so key because you start to realize your own like judgment that you put on yourself. And it's like, no, like, again, if you wrote it down and put it on paper, like in a schedule, a lot of
Hmm.
those things that we think are realistic really aren't. And so when we can reduce that like pressure on ourselves, we actually can
Mhm.
make room for creativity and doing our best work. So it's really important
Yes.
to do that. You know, you mentioned the 5 a.m. club, and I love the premise. And it's
Mhm.
funny, sometimes I do still wake up at 5 a.m., but it's more out of like stress. It's out of than out of like purpose.
Yeah.
But like what I realize is like I do my best work at night. So it's okay if
Mhm.
I sleep in because I know I'm gonna use some of those productive nighttime hours that I'm a night owl. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like you can still use that 5 hour principle at any time of the day. You just have to figure out what your 5 a.m. is, and that helped
Exactly.
me reduce some shame of like, I should get up early and hit the gym or whatever. It's like, that's not how it always works. Sometimes for me, lunchtime or even after work is a great way to go to the gym.
Exactly. And see, and again, it's different for everybody. And that's another reason why I love the concept. And like I tell people, like it's called the 5 a.m. club, but he's more so talking about using that first initial hour to be intentional with your day. So, like Shae just said, it could be in the afternoon, it could be in the evening. For me, like when I wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym, my my day is beautiful. Like it's set.
Yes.
But it's different for everybody. So just find what works for you, and then again just be extremely intentional and do your best work and just be aware. And again, it all comes back to self-awareness. Like I feel like the whole everything, our entire life comes back to knowing who you are inside, outside of all of the noise that's around us. So okay, so thank you for those tips. And then how did you stay present for your child while still honoring like your goals and your ambitions?
Yeah, I think that's really key and something I think about frequently is just
Mhm.
like, especially now that I'm talking more about challenges like divorce and relationships, because when they
Yeah.
were younger, I would really kind of keep that bottled up a little bit more. Where now I'm like, but then I'm also like, they could be in high school and hear something I say, right? So it's like, but what I really think about is what are those key things, those key moments that I want to be there for.
Hmm.
There was a time where I had two job offers on the table. One of them was saying, I basically had to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with only a little break. And if I wanted to go see my kids down the street it was really close. I was excited about that. If I want to go down the street to their elementary school, I had to take PTO. Where another job on the table was offering the same pay, but flexibility, work from home.
That's
I
the
could set
one.
my hours. I could, go and see my kids and come back. And as long as the work's done, not a problem. So it's like, just taking that job, that allowed me that flexibility
Hmm.
was a game changer because I was able to be there for those important moments. And what was even cool is they had a bring your kid to work day once a year. So I got to bring my kids in, they got to see and meet other, people in my work environment and have a community.
Hmm.
So I think that finding the things that fit, even though, I really wanted that first job, that was actually the third time I'd interviewed for that position. And I
Okay.
finally got the job offer, but it was like, this actually is not what I want. I want these
Yeah.
precious moments with my kids. And then that way, when you show up for those things, and you can ask your kids, like, do you care if I'm at your baseball game? They
Mhm.
might be like, no, actually, please don't come. Like, I'd rather, it's embarrassing,
Yes.
mom. But, then there's those other moments. Like right now, I'm teaching my son to drive. So, like yesterday, I canceled plans with friends and
Mhm.
we went out on a drive and it was so cute. He was like, driving. He's like, Sundays are family days. And I'm like, yes,
Yes.
like
I
that's
have
my
my
moment.
baby back.
I
Like,
know. And like, I try to ask him to do a family day normally. And he's like, no, mom. But like, now because he's learning to drive, it meant a lot to him. So it's just figuring out those things and it shifts at every age. So you just have to find out what's
yes.
important to my kids now and how do I still get my job done?
Oh my God. I love that you just touched on that because that's something I'm going through. And that's why I said it's so important. And that's why you said that we talk to like-minded people because sometimes we feel like we're on an island and nobody else understands us. So yeah, when you get to those teenage years and it's like they don't want to be bothered. So now, and so I learned that from the Let Them theory by Mel Gibbons. It's
Mhm.
basically, like instead of always saying like, no, you need to come with me or no, we need to do this family thing. If they don't want to go, just let them be them and eventually they'll circle around. It's
Yeah.
like you said, we try to have family days, it doesn't work. But when they want a family day, that's when us as moms have to jump on it because it's like, okay, this isn't normal behavior. Let me
Yep.
enjoy this while this is lasting. Because nowadays, like you said, they don't really want us around. They kind of want to do their own thing. And so it's kind of like, well, I'm just here. So you just really made me feel at home and at peace with that statement that you just said, because I feel like I'm not alone. So thank you for that. So what boundaries, because we know that boundaries are extremely important, which ones have you had to create in your relationships to protect your peace and your family?
Oh gosh, there's so many that I've
I
set
know.
up for myself. One is just like one thing we're focusing on right now is finding people with shared interests.
Okay.
Um, so that's one thing is like they're already wanting to do that. They're already doing it anyway. Now we can go together. I feel like sometimes I've kind of like almost forced people to take on my hobby or tried to take on their hobby.
Hmm.
And it ends up just kind of like being an unfulfilling feeling. So that's one thing. And
Yeah.
another thing is people who are supportive. Just noticing my feelings when I'm around people.
Hmm.
I used to just really cover it up and be like, "Oh, that's okay. They didn't mean that." But now I'm like, "No, like, how are they responding? If
Yeah.
I send them a picture of me with a cute dress, like, do they respond supportively or do they try to tear me down?"
Yes.
There's a lot of ways that those things really make a difference on your self-esteem
And your
and
mental.
yeah, and your mental health. And so it's really important to find people that really are supporters. And then also I think sometimes it's like not expecting everyone, like one person to carry everything. Having multiple people that you can go to is really important.
And that's key, what you just said, just being aware of how people treat you. Um, and then really don't always make justifications, don't always make excuses, take it for what it is. And that's when you don't even have to make like a big deal about anything. You can just slightly remove yourself, because it's like, okay, you're overstepping boundaries. It doesn't agree with who I'm becoming or who I'm aligning to be in the future. So, and just remove yourself. I've been doing that. I've been looking at my circle constantly, and I'm just like, again, who supports you in the ways that you need to be supported, whether it's a partner or a friend. Do they say they're going to support you and then never show up, or are they actually supporting you? And just take note of those things. And again, you don't have to make a big deal about it, but just remove yourself. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to come find you anyway, because you're not in their circle of priorities as far as like support. That's just something I'm learning. So for your kiddos, how do you model emotional awareness and healing?
Oh, wow. So there's been a lot of moments where I've kind of learned this, like, um, just noticing like how they're responding. And so with my one son, we've found that sometimes the only way to get him to act is by adding a ton of pressure and being
Okay.
like, okay, it's time to go now. Like, and have to
Hmm.
get like really stern, which isn't like natural for me, but it's like just having to get that way so that he'll respond. And then now I'm really looking at like, maybe that really isn't the type of mom I want to be. I really do want him taking more ownership. So
Yeah.
instead of doing that in the moment, we're now trying every Thursday night, we have like a movie and planning night. So like,
Oh, okay.
which is it's a little bit of a sacrifice, because that's a lot of times when I'm doing my networking, but I'm committed to making sure that we can sit down and we can go through his schedule for the week so he knows what's coming up, he can plan
Hmm.
it out. And also then I can have that one moment to offload the things and then know that like, okay, the rest of the week is his. I might give a gentle reminder, but I'm not going to be that person that's still like, it's time to go now, like I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that anymore. But yeah, I think that's been a really big learning curve for me.
Okay, and I absolutely love that. And again, like you said, especially as teenagers, like no, first of all, no teenager is the same. They're all different. We have to
Mhm.
treat them differently. But finding out what little systems in place, and even if he, feels like it may be taking up his Thursday now, in the future, he's going to be like, my mom really set me up for success. So it's about, again, like you said, as a parent, making those sacrifices to put systems in place so they can take them when they leave us. So shout out to you, mom. And then, so the next question, I want to kind of talk about scarcity. What do you feel like scarcity mode looks like in a working mom's life?
Yeah. So there's a really good podcast from NPR about scarcity mode. And it had a really big impact on me. I was working in an environment where I was provided a coach. Any woman that wanted one could raise her hand and get a coach. And so my coach pretty much after the first call was like, Shae, you're in scarcity mode. And she sent me this podcast. And it
Okay.
was really great because it talked about how This woman had lost her job. And so she went out to the grocery store and just was like, saw laundry detergent, was like, I'm going to need that for the next year. So she bought a year's worth of laundry detergent. She bought a year's worth of diapers, and basically just like overdrafted her account out of fear of running out. And basically, it's been proven that when we're in scarcity mindset, we will make decisions that aren't rational.
Okay.
Obviously, we can say like, oh, the thing to do would be buy 1 month worth of diapers, and so you have some left over.
Right.
But where I've found in applying this to my own life is, as I'm building my business, knowing that I am the most reliable investment out there, right? Investing in
Right.
myself, I know I always get it done. So believing that and knowing that like there might be some tight times, there might be some times where my bank account's low, but at the end of the day, I will always provide for myself, and just really
Yep.
trusting that. Because when you want others to invest in you or believe in you, there's a lack of accountability or a lack of attachment there.
Hmm.
And really, I've kind of been joking like I'm my own sugar daddy now because I'm investing in
Okay,
me,
Shae.
right? Like I'm investing in me, and not like, a man isn't a plan, but like knowing
Yeah.
that I always show up for myself and I will show up for myself in my business. It's
Hmm.
quite transformational to start thinking that way, because there are times where you just want to be in scarcity mode and it's very natural. But
Yep.
thinking about, when have you showed up for yourself? When have you proven yourself wrong? And clinging to those moments, because it's really important, especially as a working mom, because
Hmm.
we're not just ourselves, but we're providing for our children too.
Exactly. I love everything you just said. And like you said, we are our biggest investment. So at the end of the day, if we fail, it's because we allowed ourselves to fail. But as moms, like we never, like our mind is already wired to figure it out. Like we literally figure out everything. Um, so I love that like mindset shift. So in addition to like really realizing that you're your biggest investment, how is there another shift that may help like a woman out here to get more into that abundance mindset and away from that scarcity mindset?
Yeah. Another thing that, so I have a friend named Joe Fong, and she does an abundance podcast. It's fantastic.
Oh,
So
nice.
I
Okay.
recommend checking it out. I've been listening to it just on my walks. And one of the things that she brought up that was amazing is that time is limitless. We
Mhm.
think we don't have time. We say we don't have time. And yes, we as individuals don't have time, right? Like we might be limited to the lifespan we have on earth, but time itself is limitless. Like
Yeah.
it goes on before and after us, and it will continue to be there. So that was really mind shifting for me, of like, oh, like there is time. um so like, yeah, it was just kind of realizing that that's a replenishable resource, because I've
Mhm.
always thought of it as a finite limited resource. And yeah, it just really changed how I think about my lifespan and things like that.
Okay. And so then for our final question, if a woman feels stuck or she feels burned out, undervalued, what's the first step to reclaiming her power?
I would say the very first thing is block out your calendar, like put those limits in place so that you're
Okay.
getting those priorities, so that now you can't overwork, or you can't, go beyond what you're doing.
Mhm.
I also say get out and walk, do something to get away. I find oftentimes I'm like, oh, I have to get this done. And I'll sit at my desk and I'll be like trying to push through. But then
Mhm.
when I do actually remind myself to get up and like go do something for me, I come back and it gets done in like 15 minutes, where before it was
Mhm.
taking me like 2 hours, because you kind of get in this like spiral of thinking. So,
Yeah.
like, get up, take your break, come back to it, and I promise you it will come by so much faster.
Yes. Well, I love everything that you have shared on this interview today. Shae, you have been a great guest. Please let the followers know how can they reach out to you for your services. Maybe they want to reach out to you just to talk about your testimony, your shared experiences, or just follow and support.
Yeah, so you can find me at traumainformedhr.net. You can also find me, Shae Noble, on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And also we're everywhere on Instagram, Facebook. I think that's probably it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll have all that information below as well. But again, thank you for being such a beautiful guest on my show. And as always, that is another Women Empowerment Wednesday. So if you know of anyone or you yourself want to be a guest on the show to talk about things all motherhood, career wise, business wise, whatever it is, I'll drop all those details below. But thank you and have a great Wednesday.
Thanks. Good to see you.